Hello.
Good evening.
Oh,
How are we all?
good. How are
Hello.
you?
Excellent. Abel, good to see you, my friend. What happened last week?
I just had we had a meeting in the school because some guys had a problem with guns and things, so they give us a talk about extremism. So they thought that it was important for all the college.
Okay. Did like people bring guns to campus?
Not specifically to our place, but it was a big group. It was like, well, not big group. It was seven guys who they died because they were doing. I don't want to get into it because it's
Okay,
quite
yep.
ugly.
Fair enough.
But yeah,
I didn't
but
realize
yeah,
it was that hectic.
yeah, it was quite. So the school,
Okay.
whole school was shocked, and
Yeah,
the director wanted to talk to us, all of us.
makes sense. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear. I didn't mean to make light of it. I just didn't realize
No,
it
it's
was so
okay. It's
so full on.
100%.
But okay. Well, maybe on that note, what is going on for you that is good or you're celebrating? Like, what are the wins for you?
The wins for me. I mean, everything's going pretty well since I started this course. But specifically now, I'm getting closer to do the things that I'm studying for. I study music production, so now I'm working with some people to do an album. So I'm quite happy. I'm watching some venues where I'm gonna perform. So everything's going quite well because my professional life is getting to start. So I'm so happy. I'm definitely couldn't be more happy about it.
Amazing. Love to hear it. Thank you for sharing.
You're welcome.
Ricardo, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Hi
You're good.
guys.
Excellent.
Yes, I'm pretty good. Yeah.
Tell us more.
Well, Bitcoin is at the new all-time.
Yeah, it makes a difference, doesn't it?
It's a difference. Yeah. Like who needs spiritual work?
Yeah, that's right. It was all about money anyway.
Just joking. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm working on my stuff. I know that I'm in the right direction and yeah.
Awesome. You know what? The
That's
the real winner is Doge.
Dodge, yeah.
Doge,
But
yeah, because
I don't hold any, so
Doge has a special place in my heart, for a whole history of reasons, but I'm sure you're aware. I don't know how aware other people are of like, obviously Donald Trump won the presidency, but he's also got people around him like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk who want to create this Department of Government Efficiency, right? So they just want to like cut all of these jobs in the US government. And so they're calling it DOGE, Doge. And so Dogecoin, the cryptocurrency, has just exploded upwards. And obviously I hold a bag. And so that's been a bit of fun.
It
Uh,
seems like when you making some crypto there.
yeah. And as Ricardo
yeah.
said, that's the real spiritual work is holding crypto.
Nice.
Sorry, Ricardo, I cut you off. Please continue.
No, I mean that I'm realizing that decoding Elon Musk brain is the best way to spot the top and the bottom
Yeah.
of the market. That dude is really onto something. Maybe he's Satoshi Nakamoto.
Interesting theory. The guy is a very wild character, isn't he?
Yeah.
Okay, so you're feeling generally good. Obviously, that means some financial things have become easier for you,
Mm,
which I no.
well, not really. I I'm still struggling a bit with getting my offer in front of the right people, and
Okay.
I don't I don't really care about crypto. I don't rely on that. So I'm focused. I'm trying to figure out how to be able to attract clients without using those sleazy tactics like outreach.
Yeah.
or stuff like that. So I'm still kind of I feel like I'm in a plateau moment
Okay.
again. So still working on that.
Okay. And that's good. I'd be happy to talk to you at some point after in a more, one-on-one context and dive in if you'd like to do that. But for the purpose of this, what are you celebrating? What's going good for you?
Well, the good thing is that the clients that I have right now, so the people that I'm working with, they give me amazing feedback on what I'm doing. So I know I am on the right path. I
Yeah.
just need to refine something that I
Sure.
still don't know. So that's also what I'm asking to the
Got you.
Hemisync process. You
Got
know,
you.
yeah,
Okay. So that's good. You know what you're doing is working and it's good. People are getting helped by it. Now it's just
yeah,
about making sure that that gets in front of the people that can be helped.
yeah.
Awesome.
In a way that it feels aligned.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. Mel, what's going well for you? What are you winning at? What are you
Hello.
celebrating?
Um, well, my goal in the HemiSync thing was about getting some downloads or ideas and stuff around creating a lucid dreaming course. And the amount of lucid dreams that I'm having has like blown up. So I'm have like probably nearly every second night I'm gaining lucidity in my dreams. And
Wow.
that's like obviously really helpful because before it was kind of like maybe once every couple of months. So yeah, it's having those experiences is giving me confidence then in if I'm making a course, I'm walking the walk and therefore I'll have all these extra stories and ways to kind of help people to get lucid in their own dreams. So that's been really helpful and it's been like given me a lot of confidence and just even because when I like have a dream, like I'll give an example. One of them, I was like on a cliff face and we had to like kind of shimmy down a rock and I was really scared of falling. And then I was like, oh, my emotions are spiking, like I'm in a dream. And then I was able to just look down and like create stairs. And I just walked down the stairs and then there was just like a coffee shop at the bottom and I just got to order like gluten-free chocolate cupcakes. And it was like really good. And
Mhm.
so that just like helps me to wake up like oh, life isn't that bad, like
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
even it gives me confidence in my waking life that the things that I might think are super scary aren't. Like if I have awareness and I know that I can like create my own path and do what I want to do in life, it just makes me feel better. So
That's awesome. I
yeah,
really,
it's been
really
good.
like that perspective. 'Cause so many times the problem that we have, it has an alternate solution. We just have to kind of shift our mindset, change the way we think about it, and we realize there's a workaround. And sometimes the way is through, but usually what we're afraid of or the situations we find ourselves in, there's solutions,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
And it has been helpful in my waking life because some of the stuff I'm going through kind of feels like I'm living a nightmare right now, right? And I go, well, at least I'm lucid, so it's helping me to like feel confident in like taking a different step to what I usually would have if I was kind of like sleepwalking through life.
Sure.
So yeah, it's
You've
been good.
used the term waking life a few times. I assume you've seen the movie.
No,
You've never seen the movie Waking Life?
no,
Oh
I'll
my
write it down.
God. Okay, it's legitimately my favorite movie of all time.
Oh, really? Okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'll look it up.
Oof, close to Matrix, but I'd probably say it's actually takes the top spot.
Yeah.
Has anybody here seen Waking Life?
Waking
Oh my,
life.
Waking Life.
Never seen that.
Oh, I can't believe this hasn't come up in this group. Okay. Okay, sorry. I'm just gonna really quickly detour because this is worth talking about.
Do
Um,
Nice.
it.
it, it's a movie about lucid dreaming, and it's by a man named Richard Linklater. So he is a really fascinating director, one of my favorite directors. He often works in with movies that have something to do with time, right? So did anyone see the movie Boyhood? The
Mhm.
movies, there's a trilogy called Before Sunset, Before Sunrise.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yeah.
You've seen those?
Yeah.
So that trilogy, he actually films them over the course of about 20 years. Same actors, same story, and it's like a love story where they meet at a train station or they meet on a train and then they go off on this adventure and then they agree to meet like a year later, but then they don't, and then they actually meet like 10 years later.
Mm.
And so same actors and the whole story unfolds over 20 years. So the guy really like puts a lot of effort into his projects, let's just say.
Mm.
So
Oh,
Waking
I see.
Life, it's an animated film. It's actually acted by real people, but then they animate over the top of it in this real like weird, lucid, cartoony way. So it like makes it feel like a dream, but it's acted by real people. And the movie itself is sort of like a whole bunch of like vignettes, like these 10-minute little segments. Some of them are interactions between characters, some of them are like monologues, but all of them are in some way related to dreaming or philosophy or spirituality or just like kind of random occurrences. And like honestly, every single 10-minute segment is just mind-blowing, like amazing stuff. And the thread that links them all is like there's this main character who practices lucid dreaming. And so it's kind of him going in and out of these dreams. And these are the dream characters. Sometimes he's in it, sometimes he's observing it, but it's all about sort of like this creation of mind. And it's the most mind-blowing film. It's incredible. The artwork, the acting, the story, how it's all linked together. Absolute masterpiece. Could not recommend it more highly.
Excellent. I'm excited.
I
Sounds good.
honestly, I've thought about this a couple of times, Mel, and I was 100% sure like you've definitely seen it.
No, but I will. I can't wait.
It's on
Alright.
Prime. It's on Prime.
Is it?
Okay,
Yeah,
great.
you're looking it up. Okay,
I'm just
perfect.
looking it up. Yeah, I've got it up here now.
Okay,
Prime Video.
100% worth checking out. Okay, so that might be the closing assignment for this group, actually. Check out Waking Life and then just report back like anything that you really enjoyed because there's mind-blowing stuff. All right. So thanks for sharing. And when you kept saying Waking Life, I was like, definitely this is a reference.
No, it's just I get used to saying that because I don't know, like your dream life can be completely different to your waking life. So
Yeah.
I'm just used to sort of differentiating them.
Good. I like it.
Yeah.
Daniel, what are you celebrating?
Celebrating my first presentation of in the School of Alchemy. So that was that was pretty a big milestone, and
Yes.
I'm loving it.
So we did our first PhD milestone. You're officially a confirmed candidate in the school, in Mastermind Academy.
Mastermind Academy, yes.
All
So
right.
it's a good process. I like the format. I like the structure. Yeah, it was good. So yeah, I'm just in the process now of cutting it back a little bit. I was working on it today. So
Okay.
and then I finished all the lessons in that wave, the last wave as well. So I'm celebrating all the lessons. So
Amazing. Any particular peak experiences that you want to share?
I wrote a little comment in WhatsApp. I can't see color when I'm trying to imagine, so I'm having trouble seeing color. So there's one of them where you've got to see red or purple. Yeah, so red for power and purple for healing.
Yep.
And I can't get the color. And then there's one where you've got to picture the white, like the one I just did was the white beams of energy coming into your hands. And I can't see the white. And same with the wand. I can't make it white. So I've been struggling a little bit. But today I did a couple and I could see like a violet color. So that was, for me, that was a big thing.
Okay. So this is an interesting, actually present topic of perception research.
Yeah.
There's something called aphantasia. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
So this is the inability to form mental imagery, right?
Yeah.
And so we all have varying degrees of like detail in our ability to imagine things. Some people don't have an inner monologue, so they never think in words. Other people only have an inner monologue and never think in pictures. the broad sort of way we talk about it is we can kind of do both when we say imagine things, you know, mental imagery, when we talk about our mental monologue, we assume that everybody has these kinds of abilities, but actually these vary on a scale. There are some people who just literally cannot think in pictures, right? And it's actually a surprisingly high percentage of people. I would not be that surprised if somebody here has a limited, you know, ability to this. It sounds like potentially, while you can think in pictures, you don't necessarily have the ability to think in color. What's presently being researched is whether this is a trainable skill. My personal perception, my personal belief is that it is, and the reason being that through my experience with meditation, lucid dreaming, etc., I have developed all of these skills to the point now, like, so I do a lot of computer programming. I can now like fully computer program in my sleep, right? That it's a skill of mental imaging that can be developed. And I think as you develop these skills, you'll be able to add detail. However, there is completely an opposing point of view that people think that this is just an innate skill. Like if you're colorblind, let's say, and I actually am physiologically colorblind. I have only 2 functional photoreceptor, like color photoreceptors. That's not a trainable skill. I can't learn to see in colors, right? So that's the present question in perception research is it a trainable skill, or is it some sort of like, is there a neural representation that can't be changed? So this is actually an interesting question that might be interesting for your sort of PhD project. Can you develop higher detail of mental imagery? And then how would we test it? I suspect that it is learnable, and that if you practice the different colors, if you practice the energy bar, you know, the wand tool, that you'll actually have greater ability to manage this. But hey, it's a question. It's an open question. We don't know the answer. So awesome. Thanks for sharing, man.
Yep.
So
Definitely to
I'll
return.
just add into that if that's all right. With aphantasia, they draw on memory. So that if they say, imagine a blue butterfly, if they've never seen a blue butterfly, they won't be able to just picture one. They'll kind of try to draw in a memory of one that they've seen before. So that's how you would know. Or like if I say, close your eyes and picture an apple, if your brain just kind of creates one and then I say, okay, now make it red or make it green or whatever, if you can do that, then you don't have aphantasia. But if I say like picture an apple and you're just drawing on a memory of one that you've seen on the kitchen table or something, then you may have aphantasia. But I think the
Interesting.
color
I'm not
thing-
sure I agree with that.
Oh,
Like,
really?
yeah, because when you just said do the blue butterfly, I was just like imagining, okay, well, what if I had it like with really like squiggly edges or something like that? I can completely do that. I've never seen a butterfly like that.
Yeah,
But I
well, that
can-
means that you don't have aphantasia.
Oh, you're saying that's the test is that if you do have aphantasia, you can only draw on memory.
Yes.
My understanding is that people with aphantasia can't do it at all.
They
Even
can. They can
memories.
just only draw on a memory. No, yeah. They'll be able to just like you know how you have a memory, but it's not, I don't know how to explain it. It's not like you're creating something new in your imagination, but you just remember what it looks like.
Well, for
Mom?
me, I have very active. Yeah, go ahead, Abel.
My mom actually has aphantasia.
Okay.
I've interviewed a few people with it. That's why I know. That's all.
And she
Okay.
says the same as you. She can relate to the things you have saw, but she cannot picture anything at all. Like she closes her eyes, she just see a black space. She doesn't see anything else.
Okay.
She cannot picture. And
So when she remembers something, you're saying that it's not forming an image. It's just she relates to it. She has an association with that thing.
uh-huh.
Yeah, so I suppose that they could draw a picture of it because they remember it, but they couldn't like imagine it. Like if you tried to imagine like a creature, like combining a zebra and a giraffe, we could kind of do that in our mind, but they wouldn't be able to because they've never seen that before. But if you say, can you draw a horse, and they've seen a horse before, then they'll be able to.
Okay. Interesting.
But if they close their eyes, it's still just kind of black. It's like
Mm.
you can remember something without seeing the image
Yeah.
behind your eyes.
But
Yeah.
this is the question because it being a personal process, it's hard to know what they're actually seeing or not seeing.
Yeah.
Right. So that's
But yeah, so
very
their
different.
dreams are interesting because they're really not as abstract as ours are.
Yeah,
They're just
interesting.
all memories that have combined.
Yeah,
Oh,
wild. That's a whole rabbit hole, and I
Anyway,
think we should
off
completely suck into
topic.
that. We'll try to stay on our level. So, thank you for that, Angie. How you
hey,
doing?
I'm going. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, nice. Okay. What am I celebrating?
Yep. What's new or
Yeah.
good, or what are you
Well,
celebrating?
is this morning, like, the session. So I was holding a red wand and it was shooting rainbows. That's so epic. And then I was seeing my hand, my arm, like up to here. But you know, when you have a photo in an iPhone, I don't know if in Android you can do that, but you press a photo and you can kind of like, if you press it for long enough, you can separate the background from the photo and move the character like that.
So you're
So,
feeling like you can actually separate. You can feel a difference between your physical
and
formed
everything else
body
kind of
and
like
your
disappears.
energetic.
Is blurry.
Yeah.
It's not there actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And so when did this start coming on?
Today.
First
I
time.
haven't I stopped for a week because I freaked out and I I was like, yeah, I just needed to like be sure that I was protected and not weird energies were gonna come, you know, in my space. And so I was a little bit, you know, just very careful with that and also making sure that I had the right intentions for this. So I stopped, but now I came back a couple of days ago and then yeah, and I had that last night. So this morning.
So awesome. I think that's a really important stage to be able to feel the energy body.
Yeah.
And B, I also think that's wise. Dan, you've probably read that chapter on Kundalini more recently than I have, but does Bentov not talk about, the dangers of like trying to force the Kundalini? In fact, Ricardo, I think you were talking about it last week, forcing the Kundalini.
I'm not
Yeah.
forcing somebody else, am I? No.
Well, no, you're choosing not to. You're saying if
Oh,
this is
yeah.
the right thing, then I'll allow it in its own time. You're not
Yes,
going to
yes,
just
yes.
keep proceeding because you want to force it.
Yeah, so yeah, can I just interrupt quickly? Because we had a conversation a few years ago where I remember asking you of vibrations at the bottom of my spine, and I feel that regularly. Like I haven't felt it for a while, but I have this how do you call that? It feels like one of those shakers. How do you call them?
Like a salt shaker, like a
Maracas?
maraca. Yeah.
Like a maraca. It feels like a maraca at the bottom of my spine. So like in the center, like upwards, right there, sitting there, just shaking like this. And I'm like, I'm not gonna like I don't wanna focus my energy on that and maybe cause something that I'm not prepared for. I don't know. Yeah. Anyway. So
It sounds like it could potentially be this. It's at least a
mm,
candidate of what you're experiencing. Because the Kundalini is our natural energy, right? We are all born connected to source. We, over time, as we develop within the 3D world, we start to focus and emphasize the physical material world over sort of the energetic and the spiritual, right? But it's always there. And in fact, I think one of the fundamental shifts that has to happen is to think you're not a human who's having a spiritual experience. You're a spiritual or energy being that's having a human experience, right? You hear this a lot.
yeah.
So the spiritual energy is actually the primary plane, or at least as fundamental as the physical world. They're all actually equally important. They're all integrated, but because our biological physical reality has to prioritize, say, survival in 3D, that's why our perceptions coalesce onto this material reality, and we forget a little bit about the energetic or spiritual world. But if you pay any attention, you'll start to see there are reminders, there are aspects of this reality that are purely energetic and spiritual in nature, and they are within us. So what's happening at the base of the spine could be, it may not be, it could be a cancer. You may get it checked out. But also, it might not be that. It could be just like your spiritual energy is trying to awaken, but from sitting from just like, posture, diet, all the things that we've done that accumulate, it's just dormant and it's kind of stuck a bit. And so things like yoga practices and breathing and, spiritual exploration all help to connect you again energetically, right? And it can come with emotion, a lot of emotion, because everything's like stored and trapped. So you want to be careful with this stuff, but at the same time, it's actually coming back to your natural energetic balance. So going through and taking that leap is a good thing. But yeah, you have to be a little bit prepared for some discomfort.
Yeah.
Assuming it's not cancer.
Yeah. The other thing that has been, I've been remembering dreams, every day. Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Which it never happens. It's so rare. So yeah, it's definitely a lot happening.
Awesome. Well, thank you all for sharing. Sounds like, there is a lot happening. And hopefully this 6 weeks has been at least partly instrumental in opening some of these channels, bringing you back to your dreams. Like, honestly, dreams are so important. They're a real connection to your subconscious mind. Great to see that advances are happening in all kinds of realms. What I wanted to do today was kind of bring us back to the start. I want to go full circle, but at the same time, this is still an open loop for me. By no means have I gone through all of the gateway trainings. I'm not necessarily an expert in this stuff. Partly why I wanted to run this was to develop my own exploration of this and develop my ideas. But I do want to come back to the basics of telepathy and consciousness and mind expansion. That is why I wanted to have this group. And I've been incredibly stoked at the degree to which you guys have taken this on and explored and succeeded. Like, you guys have succeeded beyond what I thought was going to happen, because it requires commitment. It requires focus, right? Mel, I'm sure you understand, like, lucid dreams, if you want to make that happen, you actually have to take care of yourself. You have to make the conditions right. So I really appreciate how much effort you guys have put in. And 6 weeks is actually a long time, right? To stay committed to something like this. Even though at the beginning it sounded like 4 to 6 weeks, is that long enough? Actually, to stay committed to something as important as your own consciousness, it's really hard, because life gets in the way. Hence why we continually come back to living in a 3D, almost semi-sleep state, because it is hard to stay awake and open and conscious and aware. So kudos on what you've done. Really proud of you guys and stoked for this. So this is definitely not the last word. This is opening the loop. It's going to remain an open loop for me, and future exploration, I'm sure, is not too far away. So today what I want to do is come back to the beginning, where we talked about, I guess, vibration, frequency, and telepathy, because telepathy is really the thing that I find most interesting. Obviously, in this, there is higher conscious, astral projection, lucid dreaming, healing, all kinds of things. But I find telepathy really interesting, partly because I feel like I experience it all the time. And I feel like that's the thing that makes the most sense to me out of this, like with Bentov's book, Bentov's model, the vibrations, how we're all communicating. And an interesting experience I've had as a result of being a coach, I ask for people to submit to me information every single week. And I have, at least a dozen clients at any one time, often more. And now, after having several years of this, there's hundreds of people that I've worked with in various capacities. One of the major things that I have noticed is that typically when I experience something, whether it's illness or feeling a little bit burnt out or super excited or highly energetic, before I've even had a chance to tell anyone else, a large percentage of my clients will reflect it back to me. And so I actually have data on this, because I submit my data each week in exactly the same way my clients do. And there are these trends where we all sort of go up and down together, right? So these data points are observable, and as well from just a anecdotal perspective, I feel something, and I would tend to say, because I'm a little bit more tuned in, like, this is my job, so I'm likely to experience things just a little bit ahead of other people who are, let's say, laboring all day they might experience the symptoms or realize they've been experiencing the symptoms just a little bit later. So typically I'll experience something really strongly, and then within the next days or week or so, people will reflect that exact same thing back to me. And so this perception, it feels like a precognition or a telepathic understanding, has been growing in my mind, and I wanted to really explore it. So what I started to do was build this kind of notification system, right? So that I have an app, and I can track people's progress through the app. And I ask them to report on sort of habits, and I try to get it as real time as I can. What this enabled was that when people meditate, I get a notification. So-and-so has just meditated. So-and-so has just completed a workout, or they've just had, finished this lesson. And what I started to notice was that now I didn't even need to talk to them, and I know exactly what they're experiencing, right? So, and I have a general sense of how my group is going as a result of just like the notifications I get based on their behavior, right? So it's kind of cool. It feels like I'm developing a pulse for how people are going based on what they're doing, right? So they behave in a certain way. And because I get these technological notifications, I already noticed that I was having this energetic sort of synchronicity, but now there's like the technological element which speeds it up, and it sort of connects these dots. And then a third layer is that we have social media. And social media is kind of the explicit representation of all of our thoughts, where we can just pump them out, broadcast them, literally broadcast them, and then everybody is kind of tuned in to everybody else's thoughts, right? Which unfortunately has had there's a couple of negatives that we haven't really figured out how to mitigate. One is that most people's thoughts are actually fucking psychotic. Like, we are all psychotic. Like, if we actually had to broadcast every thought that we have in front of all the people that we're around, like, the only difference between someone who is genuinely schizophrenic and someone who's relatively normal is that they just don't speak out loud what's going on in their head, right? Because the thoughts of a psychotic are actually not that different to the thoughts that are going on in our head. We just don't say it out loud. But with social media, everybody's broadcasting all the time, whatever. And because we're kind of seeking engagement, it has this sort of selection pressure on the most outrageous. And I feel like many of us are old enough to have experienced life before social media was in your pocket all the time. So that means potentially we have a little bit of grounding. Sorry, Abel, not you, but the rest of us. We have a little bit more grounding in a world pre-internet, but that's just not really true for, say, the youngest generation, Abel and younger. And so this is a problem because a lot of thoughts are kind of schizophrenic. I post shit that I don't even 100% believe. I post it because I want to become clear on my thoughts. Like, I like actually having the ability to speak about them or put them out there because it helps me clarify them. But obviously this has the negative impact that people are downloading everybody else's thoughts, and we don't really have a good filter because we've got like friggin' billions of people connected, and we're just downloading all the stuff. So that's very challenging. And then the second thing is there are bad actors out there. There are not only the fact that people are just genuinely sharing their thoughts that maybe they should keep to themselves, but there are also people who are out there purposely injecting things into the public consciousness in order to sway the way that the collective thinks, right? And then you have things like censorship, which narrows the band in which human consciousness can operate, right? So, we're talking about from the Bentov kind of model of the hologram, we're all in communication always. Like, that's just the nature of being because we're vibratory. And then you have so the more we become in tune with it, because I've done a lot of consciousness work, a lot of meditation, etc., I've become more aware of it, right? I think it's something we're all doing, but some of us, we're just more tuned to. And then the added layer of being directly in conversation with a bunch of people makes it more refined, and I can see exactly where and how. And then the technological layer, which allows it to be more explicit, and then sort of like the social layer. And so all of these I just find really, really fascinating and wanted to explore it. So One thing that I'm trying to build personally is kind of a telepathy machine, I guess. So like masterminds, like what we're doing right now is we're sharing thoughts in real time. We're all in different areas of the globe, and yet we're able to share thoughts through speech. But what I want to do is build like masterminds so that we can get the best of each other, not the thoughts, not the social media, but the actions, so that we can all tune in to each other's actions, so that when Mel meditates, we get sort of updated and notified, and you can share insights from your dream, and it's broadcast, but it's done in a way that's more or less controlled, and it's curated from people that you want to know. You want to have some kind of two-way communication. So that's part of what I'm trying to build, and that's what this is in service of. And I should have something hopefully by Christmas or maybe early in the new year for people who want to actually check that out, because I think it could be really fun, really interesting. But that's kind of a side note, that building the telepathy machine. So I want to go back to just overview of what we've done, and then how I came to this understanding with the gateway, etc. And then we'll wrap up and just integrate, talk about experiences, whatever. So I'm going to share my screen. Before I do, is there anything that I've said I should expand on or say less about? Because I do go on. Anyone wanted to clarify anything? Cool. So I'm going to share my screen, just do a quick recap of where we're up to, and then I'm going to go through that X thread that I wrote that just covers sort of like the key points of the whole thing, and then that should bring us back full circle to where we started, and then we can chat. Okay. So the final week, what we did, we had a deep dive of the analysis and assessment of the gateway process. And we tried to understand the structure of the brain and how the brain has these sort of holographic, holistic properties that allow us to have certain experiences that can be independent of our physical material matter, right? So we talked about the homunculus and how it's represented in the brain. And the fact that we have a full brain map of our body means that we can stimulate that brain map without having to move the body. And so that's kind of where the hemisync thing comes in. And then we use sound vibration through the ears, different tones, one in left, one in right. They create that beat frequency, and we can then adjust that beat frequency to create neural impulses that have a certain frequency, and that frequency is aligned with each other and the Schumann resonance. And so this allows for this harmonic resonance. So we talked about sound waves and how two similarly tuned tuning forks can share information. So the basic idea is that if we can get the brain to harmonize with the oscillations of the earth, or at least at the same frequency, then you can get energy entrainment between you as an individual and the greater energetic system that is the earth, which should mean that psychic impulses, psychological impulses, do then travel with the vibration of the earth. That's obviously a pretty hairy concept, but that's kind of the idea. You get energy entrainment. We also talked in some detail about holograms, how they work, and how consciousness may be, in essence, a holographic emulsion, a projection, and that the brain would be the holographic plate in this instance. And consciousness or attention is sort of like the light shining through the brain that creates this three-dimensional appearance. We talked about higher dimensions, and we talked about vibrations, absolute in infinity, and the training is about giving yourself the ability, access to this brain state where you can control your energy body at the level of the brain map without having to move the body. And so naturally, we put our body into a sleep state, keep the mind awake, and then that gives us the ability to start playing around with, let's say, just our pure consciousness, like the laboratory of consciousness. Without going into too much detail of sort of how this works across scales, that's the broad picture. And what's interesting is at each scale, we find this torus shape, right? The heart, the brain, the neuron, the galaxy, the universe, all kinds of things seem to have this torus shape. It seems to be kind of really just baked into the fundamental shape of the universe, right? So that's why this theory resonates with me. But obviously, there are tons of theories out there, so no one is saying that this is the right theory for sure. But this is, I think, a pretty good. It has a nice mix of axiomatic grounding, as in it's built up of the basic stuff of the universe. It applies across scales, and that's great theoretically, but practically, you can actually experience something. It can actually be used scientifically, repeatably to induce an experience. And it's an experience that is predicted based on that theory. And so I think that's where there is real power, which goes far over and above what a lot of modern consciousness theories can provide. So for me, that's something really interesting there. Now, if we look at this from sort of like I guess, the narrative perspective that I came to it, which is that I do believe that we have this telepathic ability. At first, I thought I was crazy, genuinely, because I felt like I was getting downloads, or I felt like I could experience what people were thinking or feeling, or intuit things about them. And that's kind of a crazy thought. But it was really powerful, and it seems to be reflected. I constantly hear people actually saying, wow, it's crazy that you picked up on that. It's crazy that you realize that, or, you must have, people call me telepathic, sort of their own prompting. And so to some degree, my experiences were mapping on to what was being reflected back at me. So I really wanted to understand what was going on here. We talked about the antenna and how our sensory nervous system is just like a basic antenna, right? The antenna is not a complicated piece of machinery, but it picks up the vibrations in the universe and then it transmits it. It carries that signal onto something that can display it, right? And so we have both of those things. We have the antenna, which is our sensory nervous system, and we have this brain, which is capable of producing this holographic emulsion. So the technology is not that complicated. I mean, we can create complicated technology with cameras and TV sets, etc., but the basic principle of resonance isn't that complicated, and all we need is like a basic tool, a string to vibrate, or these tuning forks, and we can produce the same basic effect. So it really isn't that far-fetched. Here's a picture of the sensory nervous system connected to the brain. I'm going to skip forward because I think there's actually a moral element here that is worth understanding, right? And that is that once we start to open up these spiritual channels and we start to de-emphasize the physical world, so survival and reproduction, right, which is what mostly what's the word? It takes up most of our mental bandwidth, right? We spend most of our waking life on some form of behavior that's related to our survival or our reproduction, right? Or at least planning for one or the other of these, eating, attracting a mate, and like even accruing money is some form of one or the other of them. But if we can figure out a way to get out of survival mode into a higher energetic state where we can not worry so much about the safety of the body or its reproduction and get into this harmonized energy state, and meditation is a really, really good way to do so because you're being still. We can start to tap into this energy body, this energy state. And as you guys have experienced, you start to feel these different elements of you starting to align, starting to open up. And it's going to come with a certain level of energy. Depending on which aspects of you have been a little bit out of sync, different energy is going to be experienced. But when you get them all aligned, a feeling of oneness is the usual experience. High energy, vibration, electricity even, but ultimately connection, love even. And so it often feels like this. Angie, we were talking about that vibration at the base of the spine, and as it does unlock, it winds its way up and ultimately culminates in a feeling of explosion of energy out the head. which connects us to everything. And then if we zoom out more, that's what's actually happening. We're creating this torus pattern within us, through us, right? And that's what's connecting us, because we are energetically connected. This is a pretty picture of a monkey taking psychedelics. But, you know, there's this entire spiritual realm that seems to be not on this physical plane, but yet it is so much a part of our life. It gives us direction. It gives us a moral compass. You know, our intuition, actually, when you gain certain levels of awareness, it's your intuition that guides you. It's not so much your rationality or your logic, which is still trapped sort of within an analytical or 3D kind of frame of reference. Actually, it becomes more about stories and alignment and, you know, God or connection or the universe, however you want to think about it. And it's weird if you just analyze it from the 3D perspective. Yeah, you're just kind of a monkey, you know, with a mushroom. But in terms of how we experience life, it's so much more than that. And what I think is, once you go through this stage of reconnecting, reharmonizing, etc., the kind of picture on the television screen changes, and all of a sudden you change channel and you realize there are some really important channels. You know, things like truth becomes really, really important. You know, on a purely materialistic plane, truth is actually kind of relative. In fact, that's the whole theory of relativity, which is contained within 3D reality, is that everything is relative. There is no absolute truth or morality. Everything's just a point of view, which is a form of solipsism. But I think when you really connect higher, you start to get a sense that truth does matter and doing what's good matters, and that you are a vehicle for either one or the other. You actually don't get a chance to take sides, right? If you are like a magnet, if you are this energy channel, you are constantly going to be harmonizing with other things on your frequency, right? You are a polarized being, and you are going to harmonize with other polarized beings, and you can either be attracted or repelled towards things that are, you know, let's say, just as shorthand, good and evil. And I do think that is worth understanding, that this is an element of this exploration, is that if you're going to open your mind and open your consciousness, you have to at some point face the reality that good and evil exist, and you are, like it or not, a vehicle for one or the other. And so your free will is the central point at which you get to make change towards one or the other. And this is something that I've battled with personally, and I think it is a personal battle, because we all have impulses, we all have base desires, and then we all, or at least those of us who choose to, have the ability to conceive of something that's beyond the immediate, beyond the physical present, and can then see what's beyond and transcend. And that's where things like good and evil kind of play their games on us. So now I understand this is my perspective. I'm just trying to put it into words. But I think that this is an element that we shouldn't shy away from. We need to understand that truth and good and evil, these are things we have to contend with if we actually want to be truly higher conscious kind of beings. And we are always harmonizing with everything. We're harmonizing with the earth and its, you know, magnetic sphere. We're harmonizing with the moon. We're harmonizing with the sun. And if we choose to try to align ourselves properly, we'll feel that physiologically. We'll feel that we're moving with the universe, and that actually can propel us into the direction of our purpose. And I think that's also an important thing to deal with here, right? We have purpose. As humans, we can have purpose if we choose it. And the more we align ourselves internally, the more that flows through us. And I think that is part of the energy that is flowing through us, is this alignment to what we intrinsically know is right and good and true. Anyway, I know I just said a whole bunch of words. I don't know whether that lands or hits with you guys, but that's kind of how I conceptualize these things. And even though that's my projection, I do think it's a worthwhile conversation to have. And so I did want to leave it there. I think the core takeaway is what you are is an energetic system. You have the ability to harmonize with things, and therefore you have the choice of which channel you tune into, right? There are many channels. Like you can walk out your front door and be in one world, or you can take a plane and be in a whole another world, or you can be online in a completely different world. You actually get to choose which channel, but your choice is not arbitrary, and what you choose matters. And so if we're going to do this work, it can be a burden, but I think it's worth knowing that you do have a choice, and what you choose matters. So that's what I want to end on, and I'm going to leave it there. Okay, hopefully that wasn't too like I don't know, woo woo, whatever. I'll say finally, this has been a personal process for me, and I'm just learning this stuff as much as anybody. And I try to draw from some elements of, say, expertise in say psychology or neuroscience, etc. But I shouldn't pretend like I'm an expert at everything. I'm learning, and this is a great way for me to learn while doing it with you guys and sharing. So I don't want to come across moralizing, anything like that. Hopefully it lands like that. So yeah, that's me done. It's been an amazing adventure with you guys. So we've got plenty of time now for chats, for conversation, comments, whatever you want to talk about.
Regan,
Go ahead. Yep.
will we have access to those wave lessons beyond this program?
Yes, I'm happy. I've got 7 waves of files. So if you, I think there might be more, but there's like 7 or 9 that I know about. Plus, they do little individual adventure or journeys. So yeah, I'm happy to give you access to whatever you want.
Okay, thank you.
The app only has the 3, is that correct?
3, yeah, 3. Yeah.
Okay. Because each file is relatively large, so it's just a matter of it's really that's the major issue. I'm perfectly happy to give you whatever you need.
Thank you.
That picture with the ape and the mushroom, have you heard that theory? That's how
stoned ape.
humans are.
The stoned ape theory, yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, what's interesting about that theory is that one of my actual friends was on Joe Rogan and talked with Joe about the stoned ape theory. So,
Stop.
yeah.
Is it, I'm guessing on video or on a podcast or something?
Yeah, on the Joe Rogan Experience, the normal show.
Send us the link.
Yeah. Although because he was the head of school at where I did my PhD. He and I used to go rock climbing. But I don't think he's really a fan. He was a social psychologist. I don't think he was a real fan of the stoned ape theory, but I think he does admit he doesn't know much about it. So I think there's merit to it, but it's probably as much related to more like practical things like ability to hold fire, right? The unlocked abilities. But yeah, do you have a particular theory or anything about it?
No, I just heard that like one of the theories of how we are who we are is that we were apes and we just ate a bunch of magic mushrooms and then they like developed us into who we are now.
Yeah.
But Joe Rogan, I don't know, he's good on some things, but the other day he did a video and it was about sleeping and dreams, and he was all like, "Oh, what even is it? We just switch off every night." And I'm like, "We don't switch off." Like,
yeah.
I know he just rants and raves about stuff he doesn't really know about. I'm like, you're just making yourself look stupid.
That's true. He shoots from the hip, is how
He's
I would say.
entertaining. Yeah, yeah.
Which is great. I mean, he's a podcaster. He does 3 hours a day on it. It's like,
yeah. You'd run out of things to talk about if you knew it. Like, no one knows everything. But
exactly. Have you ever heard the concept of local sleep? I'm sure you've heard like dolphins, right? They put one half of the brain to sleep at a time. They can sleep one hemisphere. Maybe you guys have heard this as well. So dolphins sleep by putting one hemisphere to sleep at a time and keeping the other awake. Super cool. Well, humans, we fall into patterns of local sleep and local wakefulness, right? So parts of our cortex actually shut down while we're awake. And I guess lucid dreaming is effectively the inverse of that, right? Is that
but we daydream all the time.
Yeah, yes, exactly.
Maybe that's what you mean, yeah.
Yeah, that's the theory is basically that's what it's related to, is we're going into these kind of micro sleeps. And so we are shutting down certain parts of the brain because obviously the brain's energy intensive. It runs a lot of computations all the time. And so we go into these micro sleeps as a way to preserve energy, because you need to sleep in order to sort of flush out toxins, whatever. There's a whole bunch of functions, but yeah, micro sleep is really interesting. So to your point, we do not just switch off. Things are always happening. It's just that we do seem to lose consciousness. So
Mm.
it's still an open question what that actually is or means.
The other things I was going to say is with the telepathy thing, it's been good, but it's been kind of frustrating because I keep saying stuff right as my husband is like thinking it. And so he's like, see, we are still connected. And I'm like, nah, no, we're not. Maybe I'm just like telepathic now. But
Yeah.
also with like the good, bad, like evil, like you choose your path type thing. Like I notice it with my kids, and I always say to them, like, when you're bad, bad things happen, and when you're good, good things happen. And I notice it a lot more now, like they'll be being naughty or whatever. My 5-year-old kind of tests the theory out, and then she'll just like trip and fall on something and cut her leg or something as soon as she's being really naughty, or she'll be really nice, and then some random will come over and be like, hey, would you like a lolly or something like that. And so I've just been noticing those patterns a lot more.
Yeah.
And it's like, I was just kind of saying those things so that they'd behave, right? But now I'm like, oh my God, like it happens too well that
Yeah.
it's like undeniable now. And then the other thing with my kids is I was doing I didn't have like the files on listening to it, but if ever I do get like a moment where I can just lay down, like today in a massage, I started just going through the process myself without having the binaural beats, like doing the steps that I remembered and like imagining it all and stuff like that. But I was doing that at home, just laying on the ground. And my daughter just came and just lay on top of me. And like, she's not a cuddly kid. She's full ADHD, like bounces off everything. And she just came, like, I was doing like the energy circle thing, just imagining it. And she just came and lay on me and was like, and just wanted to like stay on me. And I was like, oh, she's in my
Yeah,
bubble.
that's awesome.
So
That's
it's just
amazing.
interesting to see how like the energies that I'm doing are affecting the people around me.
Yeah.
I don't know if anyone else has had any other experiences like that.
Go ahead.
I mean, I do believe exactly in the things that you said there. When you have something inside of you, the outer reality is expresses immediately. I have to say, as I told Regan a lot, I believe a lot in Neville Goddard, and he talks all the time about how you change your inner things, change the things outside, but it happens immediately. As you said, immediately you start thinking about something constantly and constantly, and that suddenly happens in the right moment. I had the history with my piano. I always tell everyone when they say they don't believe in these things, I tell them about my piano because I found 3 pianos on the street in this way. I think, yeah, I haven't paid for any of the pianos that I have. And I have one and it broke. And I was thinking, I was sad because I didn't have more pianos to play. So then I start thinking, okay, I'm gonna try again. I'm gonna start thinking about the piano constantly. I'm gonna have pictures of my room. I put all the walls about pianos and all the rooms. My phone, I had a piano in my phone. I write piano every night before I go to sleep. I write piano, like 5 times. I was just thinking piano, and suddenly the next week, my neighbor was about to throw out an old piano of him, and when he was about to throw in the trash, I just came out and saw him. It was a 1 week. Well, that piano broke eventually, also. That was my second piano. So I tried it for the third time. I thought I wanted a piano. I wanted a piano so bad. But this time I wanted a better one because I already have two. Why not? So, but I needed money because they are expensive. So suddenly the school was doing how to say, a contest about music. And I said, I'm gonna present myself. I'm gonna try. And I won. And I thought it happened, all of this happened in 1 month and 1 month and a half. I couldn't believe like just thinking constantly about the same thing has the effect so immediately. Like it's not like the material world is just expression of the things that are in your inner self. The things that you assume they are real are gonna happen outside, but you need to assume them with the strength as you can assume you can touch your hand. If you assume that, I understood like Mel, like if you can assume it that way, it's just gonna happen. But not everything is easy to assume immediately, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah, man. Well said, and amazing experiences. Amazing experiences.
I did that once with money. I was like, I'm just going to manifest $500. And I just like tried to prove to my kids that I was magical. And then the next day at dinner, I was just going for dinner with friends, and my friend hands me an envelope with $500 cash in it. And I was like, "What is this for?" And I was pregnant at the time. He's like, "Oh, for the baby." I was like, "What?" And then I came home and I was like, "That was awesome. I'm going to do it again." I was like, "Tomorrow, $500, bring it on." And then my mother-in-law comes and hands me $500 in cash and goes, "Oh, this is just to add to the electricity bill or whatever." I was like, but I think it's like, I don't know, it's like believing it, but then also not being like overly attached or desperate for it, because I
Yeah.
find then that kind of puts up a wall. So it was just like sick. And then I
Actually,
was like, I
that
should do this every day. And then it was like not going to work because I was like
that's
too
last bit
into
you
it.
said, the not being overly attached or desperate is a really important part of it. And I remember sort of being where Ricardo was, and with clients and trying to find out where they are. And I found that if I started putting money into, like, investing into things like whether it's other coaches or other experiences, software to level up, very rapidly the same amount or more would come back. And it's like a return on investment. And I noticed then the same thing. If I tried to hold on to money, right? And I was like, yes, I saved X amount of dollars on this. It's like all of a sudden, like a bill that was completely unexpected for exactly the same amount would come. And I was like, you kind of get punished. If you try to hold that for yourself, you get punished for it, right? When you
Hmm.
give and when you use it for its purpose, right, then it comes back. And it's a relationship I found in business that's super reliable. The more I push money out there with the right intention, the more it comes back. The more I try to hold on to it, the more I fall into like a scarcity mentality, and super wild. Um, and money's a really interesting avenue for manifestation because it's a general object, right? You can use it to buy a piano, or you can use it for electricity bills or for the kids, etc. So it's kind of like a meta level of getting what you want, right? Like Abel found specifically a piano, but by manifesting financial return, he was able to then take that money and then get the exact piano he needed for his purposes, right? So money is really interesting on this spiritual plane because it represents potential energy, potential for, that manifestation. So yeah, very wild, very, very interesting stuff. Thank you for sharing, both of you guys. Angie, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
Have you got any thoughts to share? Just chilling out with Stitch? Let me know
That's
which
a new
which
usage.
Yeah.
What do I have to share about this that we're talking? Different levels of experience, but I guess just around the same topic of thinking about constantly about something, but being detached and bringing it forward. That's definitely a common experience. Just that um, imagining or thinking about the object that I'm bringing forth is not that detailed or specific. And I find that, I mean, you asked at the beginning of the course what um, a very detailed picture of what we wanted to achieve, right?
The detail is up to you as much as you want to go. I think that's a great idea to be as specific as you can.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, yeah. So, and I remember saying that I had an issue with that because I think that it creates this attachment of how it's gonna show up or how or when it will appear, you know.
Sure.
So, yeah, I find for myself that I just think of a general idea of what I want and then that shows up. But I would like to challenge that idea and see what other people experience.
Any thoughts on that?
I have a question about, for example, the clarity of the things that you visualize. Because many places they say you need to visualize as much as you can, you need to have as much detail, but also that feels like is you are having not faith. Like when you have faith in something, you don't need to know in every detail how to say, for example, like Christians, they don't need to know everything about God, but they do believe it. They believe in this energy that is going to give them everything. I like the history of Abraham when God tells him to go to this place and everything is going to happen and he just goes. He doesn't know. and it happens. Because I don't know, I feel like if how do you think about this? Like if you have to think every detail, it kills the faith that you have, or maybe not. What is your thoughts?
Are you asking Angie or are you asking me or
Oh, anyone, what did they think about this idea of having every detail known?
anyone want to jump in?
I think it's important to have details of like your final goal, but I think that you get stuck when you try to have details on every step along the way of how to get there.
Mm.
Does that make
Okay.
sense?
No, yeah, actually makes
Yeah,
sense.
just have faith at the end, and then like it could be like, you know, you get given things that are going to guide you along the way, but you don't even realize that that's what it is.
Uh-huh. It's kind of like the book of the alchemist, isn't it? He just knows he needs to go there, but he doesn't know what he needs to do. He knows he needs to go to the pyramid, isn't it?
Hmm.
Great book. Love it. In fact,
Oh, my
Angie,
favorite
I think
one.
you gave me my first copy of The Alchemist, or did I give you the first copy? I remember in Melbourne.
I think you
What?
probably gave it to me. Yeah,
I associate that book with you, whichever way.
nice.
That's
And in fact,
Look,
it's one of the reasons I call this the School of Alchemy. Just
oh,
FYI as well.
really?
Aw.
From that
Nice.
book. Yeah. And
Oh,
other
nice.
things, but yeah,
Yeah.
amazing book.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I had many times I visualized something in detail, and it just never shows up. Like it does show up in that same thing, but 5 years later, 10 years later, like I had things like that, and I'm like, well, one day it has to show up, but like it's so late. I just think that yeah, I probably need to tune more in speeding things up a little bit. I don't know how to do that.
It's a really good point. How
Yeah,
to speed things up.
how to speed things up. Because yeah, I remember the first time that I visualized something or that I ever like thought about doing this was in 2009. And I thought of an opal. And I got the opal like 2 years ago. Like it's been like 13 or 14 years, and the opal appeared, but like it was just too long, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody
It's
have
just
thoughts? Yeah, go ahead.
no, I'm just thinking like it would be really nice to know how to you know, speed things up.
So I've had an experience with this, and I think that it depends on what it is you're asking for. So
Yeah.
if you're asking for something that is like for the greater good of humanity,
Yeah.
and you put it like, for example, one of my goals was my 5-year goal was I wanted to go to a conference of the International Association for the Study of Dreams, right? They're overseas. I had a baby. I was like, that's a 5-year goal. That's not something I can do straight away. And so I put it on my goals list. And then the next day, someone from the International Association from the Study of Dreams contacted me and offered me a job. And I ended up getting to go within 6 months, like exactly the next conference. And I got sponsored to go over there. They paid me to be there. I got my flights paid for, everything worked out.
Nice.
Because it was kind of like for me to have that experience, I was like, you know, filming it with my TV show and sharing it with the world for the greater good. The universe was like, yes, that's meant for you. Here you go, straight away. And I had written it on paper and had it as a goal. But I think if it's something like, oh, I want a Mercedes-Benz car,
Yeah.
well, then, you know, it might take a lot longer because it's just a personal, like a materialistic want. But yeah, I just find if it's like the thing that is meant for you in your life path and it's going to help other people and you commit that you want it and you're going to do it, then it'll come to you a lot faster.
Yeah, definitely. I do agree with that. Yeah.
Any
I
other
also think
perspectives?
I also think it has to do also with the deeper motivation of wanting something. I'd say if you want a Mercedes, the Opel, for example, I don't know. I think like if you want it just because to have a car, it may be a feeling, as you said, of the scarcity of lack. But if you want the car because I don't know, you want to bring your child to school, it's gonna make your life easier. I don't know, it may come easier, such as uh, she said that she wanted to go to this conference because it was relevant for herself in a deeper way. I think it came faster. I don't know. I feel like the thing that are behind for what you want specifically, it makes things arrive faster or slower.
Hmm.
Well, I'd like to add that there are actual laws that dictate this, right? So the whole study, like alchemy, is nested within what you might call natural law, right? Before science was science and religion was religion, we had natural philosophy, right? And that was science and religion and all these things. It kind of all bundled into one. And that's kind of where alchemy got its start. And so what effectively alchemists were trying to do was understand, are there laws of the universe that govern causality, that govern the unfolding of things? And they basically discovered that indeed there are. And they're operating all the time. So causality being one of the laws, right? There is cause and effect. If you create a cause, you put something into motion, it will have effects. If you walk off a cliff, you will always go down. You're not going to go up. It's just a law. But these same laws, these same principles operate in what we call the spiritual domain, and that's because they span every single dimension, right? The same laws operate whether it's 3D reality or any of the other dimensions. And so I think, Abel, you touched on a really important point. It's really about your motivation. It's about your alignment to that thing. And I think what you've noticed with the gateway experience is that you can have an experience almost immediately because there's very little resistance in you. You're just doing it with your thoughts. And with your thoughts, you can create something instantly. How long does it take you to manifest? Well, it really is a function of how badly do you want this thing and how much are you willing to align yourself to it. And so that's where sort of the concept of sacrifice or equivalent exchange comes in, right? If you don't really care about that opal or that car or whatever, then maybe you're just giving up a tiny little thought energy over the course of 12 years, and that's how long it takes to manifest an opal. However, if you focused your entire being, like Abel, you writing piano every night, you're thinking piano, you're praying piano, etc. Pianos are now basically raining out of the sky for you, right? The alignment is there. And that's what the natural law principles are. It's the principle of equivalent exchange and causality and all these other things, right? And so all of these things start in the mind. They start as thoughts, and a thought grows and it gains momentum in the same way a seed grows and grows into, a seedling, and we have to care for it when it's in that little nascent state. We have to really care for it, make sure it's protected and water it and give it. And care is the operative word here. Care is one of the fundamental principles of alchemy and of natural law. But eventually, what happens is we provided enough care, enough soil, enough nutrients that it grows into something that cares for us, right? We create our own, say, career, we create our own income so that it just returns to us in greater abundance. And now we actually don't have to put in as much effort and we just get to reap the rewards, right? So there are so many principles in operation. There's obviously cause and effect, equivalent exchange, and care being sort of like a binding principle that whatever you care about will return to you. Whatever you think about will return to you in the abundance which you provide it, right? So the more, if you put everything you can into this thing that you care about, it will return to you very quickly. That's the principle. So time is really kind of a measure of how aligned and how much you care with this thing, right? Because the opal, you probably didn't care that much, and you probably cared about a million other things at least as much. And therefore, those things had to manifest in order, right, before
Yeah.
you got to that thing.
That's actually, yeah, right.
So what I'd like to potentially leave you guys with here is an invitation so when I opened up the Gateway Experience modules on the app, I actually also opened up an advanced alchemy course as well, and there's a fuckload of videos in there. But the first 4 are all about natural law. And natural law could be considered the real law of attraction, right? So this conversation has naturally evolved into the law of attraction. How do we get what we want? How do we align ourselves with the forces that are going to bring us in contact with the things we say we want, right? if you understand natural law, which is alchemy, if you understand these things, then you can become more effective at getting what you want. But the answer to your original question, Angie, you asked how much detail should we put into that overall idea of what we want? And I think embedded in that question is detail is some kind of cognitive concept, but that's not necessarily the right lens to look at it. The detail is the emotion, the feeling. So how much do you need to feel it? And as Abel said in the beginning, you need to be able to feel it the same way you can feel your hand. You need to identify with this. Like Abel identifies as someone who plays music, who owns a piano, etc. Like that's just so crucial. It's so knit into his identity that it's only cause and effect, right? It's the natural outcome of things that a piano and music is going to enter into his life because it's part of his identity. So it's about the feeling and the identification with that thing, and not so much the thought alone or the cognitive concepts of detail, right? And I think that is potentially one of the biggest challenges we face in the West, is that everything has been put through the lens of cognition, of intellect, when that's really only a part of the equation, right? We've talked about holograms, holistic imagery, and this whole idea of taking the analytical mind, right, say the left hemisphere function, and integrating it properly with the right hemisphere, so the more holistic or creative function, getting those two to operate in concert is how you get the proper alignment. And actually what you'll experience will take you out of your mind. One of my favorite quotes of all time from a man named Alan Watts. He says, when we speak, and you know Alan Watts, when we speak of enlightenment, what we really mean is dehypnotization, coming to your senses. But of course, to do that, you have to go out of your mind, right? We're hypnotized by our thoughts. To truly become enlightened, to truly transcend just this, you have to actually come back to your body. You have to come back to your full sensory awareness. And so the experience is actually of going out of your mind. That's why everyone's like, am I going crazy? Right? When I started to feel this telepathy, it's like, am I actually legitimately schizophrenic? It's a genuine question because I thought I was out of my mind. And I was. I was literally going, my center of consciousness was no longer just in this intellect. It started to expand and integrate all other aspects. So
In
what I'm
our
getting at,
book, oh, sorry.
yeah, I'll just wrap up. And that's to say that there are laws, there are principles, and there is a pretty well-defined understanding of this. But some of it's not exactly the nicest stuff to hear, because the modern version, the new age version of the law of attraction is like, oh, you just think nice things and then nice things happen, right? And that's actually part of the story, but it's only a kind of the kids' version. What you legitimately, Mel, what you said to your kids, it's the kids' version. The truth is that there are laws of cause and effect, and they affect good and evil, and they operate by the same laws. And if you don't understand them, then you are easily swept along into things that are, let's say, not in your best interest. Because, let's say, certain psychopaths who do understand these laws can use them against you. If you are ignorant of them, they can be used against you. So it is actually worth knowing and understanding the arena in which we play. So that advanced alchemy course actually goes through, if you want to understand the real law of attraction and natural law, I've put together just those 4 videos. It explains it in some detail, but it's also not necessarily palatable to listen to. Some of it's quite blunt, but if you do it, you'll understand it. Okay, I'm going to fucking zip it because I'm like motor mouth. Please, Mel, take us away.
I just was going to add in all to do with everything you're saying, but something that really stood out to me, because I've been actually just doing a lot more reading this week, that was in this book, was that they said that thoughts don't begin in our mind. Thoughts actually begin through our senses and our urges, and then that is what plants the seed of the thought into our mind. So pay more attention to your senses and urges.
Yeah. I would add that we have free will as well. So that's the causal relationship. You know, we're in an environment with impulses, and that makes us feel something, and then those feelings sort of manifest themselves as thoughts, and then those thoughts as actions, etc. So that's the causal relationship, but also we have free will. So we can become aware of it, and then we can change the trajectory. So we do also, in addition to that, have the capability to redirect our thoughts. So both are correct. What a trip. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I certainly have. I hope you guys are pretty spent as well. Like, hopefully you're kind of exhausted and ready to not meet every week, because hopefully it has taken some input of energy, and that
Yeah.
you'll feel a little bit of a release and expansion by not having to do this each week. But hopefully also you've learned something and you've got tools at your disposal that you can tap into anytime.
Yeah,
Also, obviously, contact me. I'm happy to help however I can.
are we gonna leave that WhatsApp chat open to share things, or like what's gonna happen?
Yes. Okay. That's a very, very good question. So I think watch Waking Life. I think you'll love it, and I'd love to hear your perspectives on it. So why don't we keep the WhatsApp channel going for at least a couple of weeks? Because I would also like to have an exit interview with each of you. Okay. So there'd be a few things I'd like to know about you. I'd like to know what you came in thinking, you know, what you experienced, any fears or uncertainties you had, and then how you see it now. Some of the experiences you had in this time period. And, you know, it'll just be a general chat, maybe a 20 to 30-minute conversation. But I'd like to organize that with each of you over the next probably 2 to 3 weeks at a time that's convenient. So let's keep this chat open. We'll talk about the movies, any other things that come up, integrate if you've got questions. I know I've been quite busy the last 2 weeks, so I haven't been as active. So apologies for that if questions have gone unanswered, but I will try to be responsive as I can over the next few weeks. So yeah, that should answer your question.
Nice.
All right. I do think we've covered everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna miss you guys.
Pretty comprehensive.
Yeah, me too.
I've really enjoyed it.
And what a great group. Genuinely, this has been a beautiful cross section of, you know, we've got ages, genders, locations, languages, right? And experiences with whether it's meditation or spirituality, dreams, psychedelics, alchemy. I couldn't have asked for a better cross section of experiences, etc. So I'm super stoked to have worked with you guys. Thank you so much.
Likewise.
Thanks,
Yeah.
Regan, for running
Thanks,
through it.
Yeah,
Regan.
it's awesome. Thank you.
What a gift. I'm super happy with this. Thank you.
My pleasure.
And was a great experience.
Awesome. I'm really glad to hear that. Okay.
Yeah, I'm super keen. So if we have access to these audios, I'm just gonna continue doing it and probably journal them, and yeah, just ask questions in the next couple of weeks and see what happens.
Yep. Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay. If more things do come up, ask them through the WhatsApp. Why don't we leave it there? Thank you very much. I hope you've gained something from this, and I look forward to an ongoing relationship with all of you.
Lovely. Good on you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Okay.
guys.
Thanks, Regan.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
guys.
Bye.
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 Ciao.
Bye bye.